Caddis Maximus here. Here we are reviewing the Wilton 8-pound 3.6 kilogram Unbreakable sledgehammer. These have been pretty good. They actually have a pretty good reputation, although they have a couple of unique properties and durability considerations opposed to some other sledgehammers. But generally speaking, they are definitely pretty heavy duty. As far as unbreakable, as we all know, nothing is truly unbreakable depending on how much you abuse it. But these are definitely, really are a pretty tough contender. So what makes these more unique than, say, any other standard type of sledgehammers that have traditional hardwood handles or have fiberglass handles would be that Wilton has chosen to use a steel core, a steel rod in the handle, and then have a heavy-duty, pretty thick rubber overcoating. And that's part of the one of the considerations with this sledgehammer is pound for pound, they're quite a bit more expensive than a general use Corona or something along those lines, particularly because you're getting a more unique head forging and this much more expensive handle, because you have to have the steel core and then you have to have the big overmolding machine to make it. Distinct advantages that provides is, since there is a lot of rubber on here, the vibration that you might expect to feel from the steel core really is negligible for two reasons. It isn't just the softness of the rubber, but since there's a couple pounds of rubber on this thing, all that acts as a dampening material to reduce vibrations from the steel handle. The steel handle actually does go all the way through the core of the head, which is what you might expect. They also do something which is unique. They don't actually like epoxy this in like they would a fiberglass handle, nor do they use a wedge to split it like a wood handle. This is press fit. So what I'm assuming they're doing is they have what appears to be some kind of forks, like the metal core splays out and probably gets pretty close to the edge of the rubber, and then they just press it on there. Probably has a taper section like most of these heads do, so it kind of notches in, and then the stiction from the rubber really keeps it from falling off. Now, there has been a couple reviews where people who really use these under very heavy-duty conditions have mentioned that the heads have come loose on them. Well, it seems like probably a majority of the people really haven't had those issues, but the heads coming loose on sledgehammers can be a notorious situation for any design style, particularly for people who are really using these for very heavy-duty situations. If they're driving heavy stakes all day or using them to break apart masonry and rock, one of the big issues is that you end up striking right here on this portion of the handle with all the force of the head going against it. Not only does that beat up this section of the handle, and on the steel core could cause it to bend. I've read about a couple of those, although it's not a big deal to have a bent handle versus a broken one. It's that all that shock loading can cause the head to want to start to loosen up a little bit. Speaking of the head, it really is a nice design, and I do appreciate that. It's a beautiful sledgehammer head, really smooth. They did a great job sanding off the forging, flashing, although you can still kind of feel it right here along the sides. And they have this unique design with the teeth, or not the teeth, but these tapered sections on the bottom and top of the head. I'm not exactly sure the purpose. Maybe just to get it to deflect a little bit, and maybe not want it to get caught up on these bosses on each side. And although I have not pounded with this one very much, a lot of other reviewers say that the steel that they use and the heat treatment process really is pretty excellent. I should also mention that it's a standard 35 inches, or what is known as a 36-inch 3-foot full-length sledgehammer. And of course they do have these in a variety of weights, the 8-pound being a nice compromise. Lighter than this, actually the 6-pound would be considered the standard, but sometimes doesn't quite give you enough mass. So the 8-pound is what I would recommend. Part of the other reason I would recommend that over the 10-pound is because of the steel handle. This weighs overall more than one that's slight size increased with a fiberglass handle, such as this 10-pound Husky. This 10-pound Husky with the fiberglass handle weighs about the same as this 8-pound Wilton. So these do swing harder. Another consideration is a bunch of more of that weight is tied up in the handle versus a fiberglass one, where the handle is really lightweight compared to the head, although the fiberglass is not as durable. They work okay, particularly because these fiberglass handle sledgehammers can be purchased for quite cheap. I would like to also mention, in comparison, this is actually a Husky. Is the fiberglass handles a little bit cheating on the Husky, because you can see here that it's actually much smaller than you would be led to believe via how wide it is at the bottom, and you can see how small the diameter of the epoxy hole is on the other side. That's where there's a big upgrade in the Wilton. There's a huge, this securing hole is much larger in proportion to the head, and I'm sure that's probably why they have these metal buckles here, is just to get a little more weight on the head without it getting too long or too big in diameter to compensate for the large cutout of holding the handle. What I do like about this is this handle diameter here is how big it is going all the way through. Furthermore, if you're using this to drive a bunch of stakes, fence posts, inevitably going to miss, and it's going to gouge out the rubber. And there's some photos where it's gotten pretty beat up around here, just all chewed out like an animal, just tearing it apart. But the steel was still in there, and you could still use the sledgehammer, so that is an advantage in that aspect as well. That and the fact that you don't have to worry so much about sudden failures, like mishitting with a traditional hardwood handle like a hickory handle. In just the right situation, if you're the mishit and it didn't have one of these boots and you were to land right there, it would be very possible to actually just have the whole head snap off just catastrophically, especially as this gets chewed up. Now, I do admit that when they have these kind of boots, these traditional 6-pound sledgehammers with the hardwood handles are a go-to. It's easy to replace the handle when you have an issue, because you can easily, well, this is painted over, but you can easily drive out the old stub of wood and get a new handle, and that's nice. It's nice that you can choose between different grades of wood to get different characteristics. Hickory is used based on price and durability and weight, although there are a variety of hardwoods that would offer better vibration dampening characteristics that would be more than strong enough for sledgehammer use. And I kind of wish Wilton, even though they do have it is a rubber overmolded steel handle, it would have been nice if they would have included some type of bumper like these. This is a Verona sledgehammer, just to keep this from getting quite so torn up, because once it does, it just ends up looking kind of gross. But that may be for personal preference as well. One final aspect I do also like about it is because you have nice serrations on the rubberized grip, you really have excellent holding power on this, especially if you're doing really big swings. Those serrations, in addition to the rubber, it really works well. It's nice to have a nice secure grip. And I thought it was wise that they included it at the nose end too, or the working end, so it's easier to pick up when you're raising it over your head for doing those kind of hits. If you're using it vertically like a tamping tool, that also gives you a lot of extra grip, which are both things that really haven't been available in other sledgehammers. Some do a rubberized overcoating, but this is really meant for, heavy grip and dirty work. So anyway, that was my overly verbose bench review of the Wilton 8-pound UnBreakable sledgehammer. And we can't forget that they do print Unbreakable on there, although it's not green embossed, and they should have for how much you're paying for it. But otherwise, generally, it's a nice, good, professional-grade sledgehammer, and there really isn't a whole lot of choices in this market. Sledgehammers, they're kind of a simple tool, and so it's kind of hard to try to break in and make something different, and I'm glad Wilton was trying, especially putting their name being associated with vices. Maybe someday Kurt Vices of Machine Tools will make a sledgehammer, and then it'll be like $500, but be truly indestructible. Anyway, I appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Catus Maximus out.